Howdy folks, Spy Dingo here to do the most original thing ever for any content creator, talking about the Fallout TV show. I know, shocking. First thing I'd like to say, since this is my first video on the subject, is that Fallout TV show is pretty good. I enjoyed it. It was a good watch. So if you plan on watching it, you definitely should, and you should leave this video, because I'm about to talk about some things that you might consider to be a spoiler. So like you might have guessed from the title, I don't love how they did the T-60 suit of power armor. I think they did it dirty. And so, please join me while we go through why I think that's the case. Starting with the lack of impact dampening for the pilot. You see this awesome, decent scene when a Yao Guai attacks Knight Titus in his T-60 cherry power armor from coming from behind somehow. I guess maybe it used the stealth boy. But regardless of all that, scratches him a couple of times, and then he's like, oh my gosh, I'm dying, and he runs away, and then he trips, and he like falls and hits his head on a rock or something, and like that does more damage to him than the bear actually attacking him, than him tripping and falling. And it's like, this is supposed to be a mobile tank. There should be some sort of impact dampening technology in there, so just blunt force trauma doesn't kill the pilot. But anyways, it does. It kills him. He he gets scratched a couple times and then he falls and he's basically dead. But then Maximus just shoots the bear twice and the bear dies. And I don't know what it is about power armor either in this series, but so far, if you're wearing power armor, it immediately turns you into a stormtrooper and you can't pew pew for anything. But I digress. The second thing that I really didn't particularly appreciate is the lack of training required to operate the power armor itself. Yes, I know with Fallout 4, Bethesda did away with this anyways for their, cathartic power trip. You're 5 minutes in, you jump in the T-45 and you go shoot a Deathclaw. I get that they did this, they removed that requirement, but I didn't like it then, and I don't like it here either. It's like saying, hey, I know you've never worn a spacesuit before, but go do an EVA. Or, hey, I know you've never done scuba diving before, but here, have at it, kid. And somehow you succeed. It boggles the mind. To be frank, it's bullshit. But hey, I get it. Maybe Finn, the stormtrooper, Maximus, the Brotherhood aspirant, has had some training. But the way that he and the girl, whose name I don't remember in the slightest, walk up to the T-60 power armor and are like these stunned kids in front of something they've never actually seen in person before and are just like glowing in the radiant radiation that's coming off of the suit. I don't believe for a second that they've actually had practical training in power armor usage. But hey, maybe they did, and I could see that being the case. Then you have Mr. McLean, Lucy's dad, jumping out of nowhere into a power armor suit that somehow wasn't damaged by the grenade that knocked the helmet and head of the previous pilot out of it. But regardless of that, just jumps in there and uses it perfectly. I mean, flawlessly. Even does the jump jet thing, like Iron Man style, and he just nails it. Like, yes, I get it. He worked for Vault-Tec, but I don't see a lot of Vault-Tec secretaries getting actual hands-on training with using power armor. Sure, they showed West Tech in the board meeting, so maybe they had the schematics, and Lucy does discuss how she's seen the schematics hundreds of times and she knows them backwards and forwards, and that's how she can get Finn. I'm sorry, I'm going to keep doing that. That's how she can get Maximus out of the power armor in one of the previous scenes. But there's one thing like reading about something and then actually being able to do it. Like, I can understand this is the mechanics of how you scuba dive, but without having actually ever done it, you're not going to be flawless like that. It's kind of crazy to me, but I guess it's just par for the course. He's the bad guy now, so he can do it amazingly because of course he can. I don't know. Weak to me. Okay, now speaking of the Iron Man hand jets. I'm sorry, the second I first saw them, I thought they were just like going to be cool flamethrower attachments, and I was okay with that. But for them to be a jetpack? Really? That doesn't make a lot of sense for a lot of reasons. One, the two jets are not going to be enough to lift the T-60 power armor off the ground. I'm sorry, I don't believe it. But also, if it was, right, it would have to have enough force to lift the entire thing against gravity. But also, you'd have to be able to make sure that the arm joints can hold that thrust in place so you can actually control it. Otherwise, you'd be like throwing your arms up. Like, that's not going to work. So I don't buy that at all. With the other things that happen in this show, it's just super hard to believe that the power armor is actually structurally sound enough to lock those arms down. I mean, that's all that force on a hinge. I don't see it. And quite frankly, every time I see them fly, it looks ridiculous. I mean, I don't know why I didn't feel this way about Iron Man, maybe because it's a lighter, more form-fitting suit, but you would still think that that's a problem there, and it's even more of a problem here when you've got this awkward, big, bulky T-60 power armor you're working with. But speaking of having jetpacks, there's like this scene when he's fighting with the ghoul in the town, right? Where he gets his foot stuck in some like decking that breaks underneath him, and he's like trying to pull his leg out and he can't for some reason because it's stuck in the decking. Like, I get what they were going for in the scene, but it doesn't make sense. In the first episode, we see Tinnitus do like a 3-step and then a jump all the way up into the cabin of a vertibird, and you're saying he can't break his leg free of some rotted 2x4s? Hard to believe, especially when you've just been showing off this stupid jetpack thing. So just use the jetpack. Done. Not a problem. This scene is ridiculous. And then, later in that same scene, the ghoul, being the badass that he is and having used power armor before in pre-war when he was a Marine, I take it, he's like, oh, I'll just get up right next to him and take my combat knife out and cut something right up here between the head and the shoulder joint. Yes, I have action figures of power armor. I know you're jealous. But cuts the thing, right? And then all of a sudden he loses control of like half of his body, but not entirely, because he can still fly away and retreat somehow. Like, are you serious? This is supposed to be a walking tank, taking bullets, taking who knows what kind of fire, and a knife nick to the shoulder is enough to disable half of the functionality? Like, what? And then to fix it was like he just takes it to a girl who solders it again. Like, that is ridiculous. That is so freaking dumb. And again, this is one of those things that is in the actual Fallout game, which I think is kind of dumb. Because, like, you can sneak up behind a bandit and, like, eject their power armor core and then steal the power armor, I guess, because it ejects them from the power armor. But why would you have a system that doesn't make the pilot at least acknowledge or set up in some way the ability to remove the power source? Why would that just be a thing that you can just do? Like, that just seems like an easy safeguard that any piece of technology should have had. I mean, you could argue that, like, these aren't the most high-tech things because the transistor and all that, but, like, they have VATs, they have a heads-up display here. Like, they should be able to have a little, like, even a mechanical switch that you flip inside with your pinky or something that lets you say, yes, you can take the power core out. But even in the games, if you take the power core out, it automatically ejects you. So this whole idea that, oh, the power core's gone, so now he can't get out, makes no sense. There's no way you're going to have a weapon system like this, or a vehicle, whatever you want to call it, where if the power source dies or goes out, because let's remember, a fusion core is basically a nuclear battery. If that battery dies, you're not going to want your pilot, soldier, whatever, to be stuck in the power armor. No, you're going to have a manual way out. Or you're going to, before you can eject the core, it's going to eject the rider. There's no way you're just going to be stuck in there and have to wait for Lucy McLean, your love interest, to come by and turn the handle, which she of course knows how to do because Vault Tech, Vault Dwellers know everything because she was in the Pipe Layer Association and by Jove, she was bored, I guess. I don't know. It's just pretty dumb. And then this is a problem with the entire show and most TV shows in general, but like the enemy characters are always given Stormtrooper, I can't hit anything in the world syndrome. Maybe none worse than the stupid, like, I mean, it was cool to see the auto turret that just fires everywhere around these two, the dog and the Enclave scientist, who are just like walking in a straight line. Like, are you telling me that it doesn't have the ability to shoot them? Like, really? Come on. Like, ridiculous. But the stormtroopers, I'm sorry, but the power armor units are the same way. Like, you put a gun in these guys' hands and suddenly, like, if they're out of the power armor, they're like pew 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 and they're taking out everybody. But if you have them inside the power armor, one, like, Tinnitus is awkwardly holding his assault rifle, like, the wrong-handed, at least in my opinion, and, like, awkwardly out in front of him in a way that makes no sense. But whenever they get into combat situations, they just whip out a sidearm. It's almost always a sidearm. And they just, like, gangster fire at nothing and hit no one. And then it ends up being a punching match. And you're like, why are we punching? Like, I get power armor is strong, but your first thing shouldn't have to be punching. The reason you're strong is to carry big guns and pew pew things. And instead, they're like, oh, pew pew. Oh, no, my God, let's fight. It's ridiculous, and it just keeps happening over and over and over again. And then you get to the final scene, and they're like, yeah, the Brotherhood, we're out, we're going to attack, we're going to take on these NCR bandits, whatever, and we're going to get that tech because we're the Brotherhood, and we're badass, and that's what we do, and we all just got armored up in our cool armory. The Knights are going in, we're behind the Knights, you know, we're doing like the tactical thing, it all looks super cool. But then the ghoul shows up, and the ghoul's like, I'm a badass. I wore one of these suits in the past, probably a T-51, I'm assuming, because the T-45 was more like prototyping, and the T-51 was the first one being used, and he says he hasn't used the T-60, but he says this stupid throwaway line where he's like, well, back in my day, they had a welding deficit right here in the center piece of the chest piece that you could just shoot right through, apparently. And he's like, I wonder if they fixed that in the T-60. And of course they didn't for some reason, because why would you fix a glaring flaw in the center mass of your power armor? But also, like, how is power armor the wonder weapon that it's been placed to be in Operation Anchorage if, like, seriously, the Chinese couldn't figure out that if you shoot it in the center mass of the platform, they die just as easily as a regular soldier? Like, come on, get out of here with that nonsense. Clearly just an excuse for the ghoul to come in and be a badass, as he's always badassing around and killing these guys like they're tin cans. And you're like, but this is completely removes the potency of power armor. You show up in power armor, the fight should be like 9 times out of 10. And here it's more like you show up in power armor and you're going to fall on your face and die. It's ridiculous. Also, when you think about, they're completely different models. It's not like it's the T-51B and there was a T-51C as the new model, but they have the same chassis. They don't. I mean, if you look at the chest piece here, if you look at the chest piece here, that is very clearly different from this chest piece here. Like, you're not going to be using the same welding technique in the same place. So this whole, it's just so dumb. Now, unless you're saying that it was actually the T-45 that he used, and then the T-51 skipped it with a new chest plate design, and the T-60, for some reason, built off of the T-45, because if you look at the T-45, see this here? The T-45 and the T-60 do have very similar chest pieces, which, you know, now that you look at that and think about that, that's kind of weird and kind of dumb, because why did they skip a generation with the same chest piece? But if that is the case, maybe it's more acceptable, but I don't know why. If you clearly had a defect in the T-45, you wouldn't fix it in the T-60. I mean, you could say, like, corruption and stuff, but, like, that's very hand-wavy for what is supposed to be the most powerful weapon you can get, short of the nuclear bombs that are dropping left and right. That's supposed to be it. That's the pinnacle of power. And you just said, oh, there's a welding defect, and anyone that shoots him in the chest is going to win. Like, ridiculous. And I guess that brings us to the end of this season. So that's the end of my complaints with how they basically ruined power armor. But I'd be remiss if I didn't point out the couple things that I think really were quite cool. Like, for example, the overall aesthetic for the props, I think they really nailed it for the in-game design, and I would love to buy one of those things, assuming that I had the money to spare for what has to be a ridiculously expensive prop, but that would be awesome. I really liked the fact that they tied in the shoulder thing to the vertibird so that you could lower them down by the pauldrons. I'm not really sure that the pauldrons would be connected securely enough for that to make a whole lot of sense, but it made a lot more sense than, oh yeah, just for you can jump out of things from as high as you want and take no damage because you have magical power armor legs. Also, I really did like the faceplate coming up. I think that makes a lot more sense than having to remove the helmet every time you want to talk to someone or give somebody a stare or something or be more personable. It just makes sense to be able to open the faceplate. So I thought that was really cool as well. I thought the whole voice changing bit was a lot of fun. Him being Maximus, able to hide that it was him for the majority of the beginning of the storyline. I thought all of that was really cool. The fact that it has like, basic like survival gear inside of it, like Radaway stored underneath the plates, and the fact that it also has like a water filtration system, and the fact they actually talk about that, I thought was pretty cool to get a little bit of a glimpse at that. Oh, and I also like that even though it was just played for laughs, right, the removing of the cod piece, I thought it made a lot of sense that you would remove that the pieces would be removable for cleaning, maintenance, and things like that. So I did like that. And then also the branding thing, like it's dumb, but also it's neat because they're supposed to be knights. So I was down for that. And I guess it shows a little bit of customization that you could make to the power armor frame as a knight, which, we all love customization. So it's nice to know that the knights get to do a little bit of customization. Although, like if you're going to do your crest, I'd be a little bit more adventurous than like, hey, yo, I'm Tinnitus, so I'm going to make a T. No, like I'd do something cooler than that. Although I guess you do have to get it into the metal work, but like, come on, you can do better than that. Okay, so all right, that really sums up all I wanted to say about the power armor. I'm sure I probably missed some cool stuff that I would love for you guys to point out to me. If you saw something really egregious that I just didn't see, tell me about it. Or if you saw something really awesome, you're more of a positive person that I didn't see, make sure to let me know in the comments down below. And with that, thank you so much for watching. Let me know how you like this one. This is the first video where I didn't really bother with the whole script thing, just had some outlines of things I wanted to say, and just kind of talked at the camera like a true YouTuber would. So yeah, let me know how you like that too. And that's a wrap, folks. Bye, Dingo, out.